New York at night always had its secrets, but tonight, the city seemed unusually silent. Benjamin Hard stepped off the rain-slicked pavement onto the quiet street where the Klein Gallery stood. The polished glass reflected dim streetlights, casting long, distorted shapes across the wet asphalt. A call from Lieutenant Keller had brought him here. Victor Klein, a well-known gallery owner, was found dead in his office. Cause of death, blunt force trauma. No signs of struggle. No missing paintings. A perfect crime on paper, yet something about it was wrong. Benjamin adjusted his coat, noting the chill in the air. The gallery doors were sealed with police tape, but the faint scent of turpentine and wax seeped through the cracks. Inside, the gallery gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights, every sculpture and canvas immaculate, untouched. He moved slowly, observing. His gaze fell on a small bronze statue on a corner pedestal, a tiny abstract figure. Its surface was polished but bore faint smudges. He crouched, examining the base. Tiny scratches, almost imperceptible, formed a pattern, a trail of evidence unnoticed by the uniformed officers bustling around. "Mr. Hard," Keller said, approaching, "no one knows how this happened." Security cameras were offline for exactly 23 minutes. When they came back online, Klein was dead. There's nothing else. No prints, no forced entry, nothing. Benjamin nodded, his eyes narrowing. He didn't rush. He never did. He let the scene speak to him. The silence, the arrangement of objects, the faint odors, every detail told a story if you knew how to read it. He moved toward Klein's office. The floor was pristine, except for subtle scuff marks near the desk. He crouched again, brushing his fingers over the polished wood. A faint impression of a footprint lingered, barely noticeable. Benjamin straightened, scanning the room. Klein's body had been discovered slumped over his chair, hands still resting on the desk as if he had been writing a letter. Nothing else had been disturbed. But Benjamin's gaze lingered on the small bronze statue again. Somehow, it felt significant. He walked around the gallery, observing the shadows cast by sculptures and frames. Every reflection in the glass walls seemed to play tricks on his eyes. The gallery was a maze of illusions, perfect for someone who wanted to disappear without a trace. Whoever did this, Benjamin murmured, knew exactly what they were doing. And they left a message. He crouched near the statue once more, turning it slightly. A faint inscription revealed itself, "Silent Witness." Benjamin's pulse quickened. A witness that didn't speak. A secret hidden in plain sight. He stood, adjusting his coat, and looked at the gallery around him. Each suspect, each motive, each hidden detail would have to be unraveled with care. This was more than a murder. It was a puzzle designed to test his mind, his perception, his very instincts. And Benjamin Hard loved puzzles. "All right," he whispered to himself, "let's see who's hiding in the shadows." Outside, the rain had begun again, soft at first, then steady. The streets shimmered like liquid glass. And somewhere in the city, the murderer watched, silent, confident, knowing that Benjamin had just stepped into their game. Benjamin Hard returned to his loft, but sleep eluded him. The image of Klein's office, the bronze statue, and the subtle footprint replayed endlessly in his mind. The city outside thrummed with life, distant sirens, the hum of late-night traffic, yet Benjamin felt the silence of the gallery pressing down on him. He poured himself a cup of green tea, the steam curling in the dim light. The cup warmed his hands, but his mind was cold, analytical, already racing through possibilities. Who could enter the gallery unnoticed, strike with precision, and leave no trace? By midnight, he was back at the scene. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets gleaming under streetlights. Inside, the gallery felt different, quieter, more intimate, like it was holding its breath. Benjamin started with the office. Klein's desk, meticulously organized, held nothing unusual, except for a small envelope tucked beneath a stack of documents. He opened it. Inside, a Polaroid photograph of the bronze statue. But something was off. On the back, a single word was written in fine script: observe. He frowned. Someone was leaving clues, teasing him, but with purpose. Then the gallery lights flickered. Shadows stretched and contracted across the walls. Benjamin's gaze snapped toward the entrance. Two figures emerged from the darkness, young, anxious, yet careful not to touch anything. The first was a woman in her late 20s, paint-stained hands and nervous eyes. She introduced herself as Clara Voss, an emerging artist who had frequently exhibited at Klein's gallery. She claimed she had been working late on her latest installation and had stumbled upon Klein's body. Her voice trembled slightly. The second was a man in his 40s, sharply dressed, with a calm but tense demeanor. Marcus Lorne, a former business partner of Klein. He had been arguing with Klein over the gallery's finances. His presence tonight seemed deliberate, though he claimed he had come to check on an overdue invoice. Benjamin watched them carefully. Their movements were deliberate, but small details betrayed nervousness. Clara's foot tapped lightly, Marcus's fingers drummed on a nearby frame. He noted their eyes, the direction of their gazes, even the subtle changes in breathing. He didn't speak yet. Observation came first. Questions later. A sound echoed from the gallery's back room, faint, metallic, like something being shifted. Benjamin's attention snapped. The two visitors froze. "Don't move," Benjamin said calmly, stepping toward them. "Tell me exactly what you saw and when." Clara and Marcus exchanged glances. Then, slowly, carefully, each recounted their version of events. Both stories aligned in timing but diverged in detail, subtle inconsistencies that only someone trained in reading behavior would notice. Benjamin's eyes returned to the bronze statue. Silent witness. Somehow, it felt as if the statue itself had recorded their movements, their truths, their lies. He made a mental note: the murder was not random. Every detail, the timing, the suspects, the scene, had been meticulously orchestrated. Someone had planned this to be observed, tested, and perhaps even solved. Stepping back, Benjamin realized the gallery was more than a crime scene. It was a stage. And he had just been introduced to the actors. He looked at Clara and Marcus again, letting his gaze linger. "One of you," he murmured under his breath, "is hiding something deeper than fear." Outside, the city lights reflected in the wet streets. Somewhere in the shadows, the killer was watching. And Benjamin Hart had just entered a game where every move would be scrutinized, not just by him, but by someone who knew his every step. "Let's see who speaks first," he whispered to himself, "and who waits too long." The gallery had emptied, leaving Benjamin alone with the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the faint scent of turpentine lingering in the air. The bronze statue, silent witness, stood at its corner pedestal, glinting under the overhead light. He crouched beside it again, fingertips tracing the tiny scratches and smudges on its base. Something about it told him it held the key. Not just a clue, but a message left intentionally, a trail meant to be followed by someone who understood observation, nuance, and deduction. Benjamin's eyes scanned the gallery floor. Dustless, polished, yet tiny scuff marks led from the statue to the office door. They were almost invisible, but his trained gaze caught them instantly. He crouched, examining the marks. A shoe, light, patterned. Designer sole. Not uncommon, but enough to narrow possibilities. He moved toward Klein's office again, flashlight in hand. The desk remained immaculate, except for the envelope with the photograph and the cryptic word "observe." Benjamin studied it carefully. The handwriting, precise, deliberate, calm, was familiar in style. Someone who intended him to notice. Someone who knew he would. He recalled Clara Voss and Marcus Lorne, the gallery's night visitors. Clara's nervous energy, Marcus's controlled tension, both genuine, yet both hiding something. He considered their movements, their timing, the subtle tells he had observed. And then he noticed it, faint traces of paint on the edge of the bronze statue's pedestal. A shade of crimson mixed with metallic silver, matching the pigment Clara often used in her work. Benjamin smiled faintly. Not a coincidence. But there was more. He turned the statue slightly and found a nearly invisible engraving on the underside, a tiny symbol resembling an eye. A signature. A mark of surveillance. Someone had wanted him to see it, and the placement suggested careful planning. He checked the surrounding room. Nothing else was out of place, yet instinct whispered danger. The gallery's back storage room, where older artworks were kept, had a faint chemical scent. Solvent? Perhaps used to clean evidence, perhaps to hide a trace. Benjamin stepped closer. Inside, he found scattered envelopes, all addressed to Victor Klein. Financial documents, threatening letters, and invoices for artworks never delivered. Each was pristine, untouched. Yet one envelope was open, the seal broken in a way that suggested deliberate placement. He carefully opened it. Inside was a note, typed, cold, and impersonal. You saw what you shouldn't. Watch carefully. Observe silently. Benjamin's eyes narrowed. Someone was not only watching the gallery but also anticipating his every step. The murderer, the orchestrator, had left breadcrumbs, guiding him, teasing him, testing him. He crouched beside the statue again, examining the scratches, the engraving, the subtle smudge of paint. Each detail told a story. Each told him that the crime was not about robbery or personal vengeance, it was about observation, control, and psychological games. Benjamin rose slowly. The night outside pressed against the gallery's glass walls. Somewhere beyond, someone watched. Someone who understood human behavior, human curiosity. Someone daring him to make the first mistake. And Benjamin Hard loved challenges. He glanced toward the office door, where Klein had been found. Footprints, paint traces, and cryptic messages formed a pattern, not random, deliberate. Whoever did this wanted him to follow, to uncover, to decode. You want me to see everything, he whispered to the empty room, and I will. But you're about to learn something, too. I see more than you think. Lightning flashed outside, casting long shadows across the gallery. For a moment, the bronze statue gleamed like an eye, silently observing everything. Benjamin's hand rested lightly on its base. He didn't yet know who the murderer was, but he knew the first clue had already spoken. And I always listen. Benjamin Hard spent the night analyzing the gallery in his mind, piecing together the subtle clues he had collected. By dawn, the city was cloaked in fog, the streets slick and reflective, echoing each distant footstep. He returned to the Klein gallery with renewed focus, his coat drawn tight against the chill. Inside, the gallery was quiet, almost serene, a sharp contrast to the tension lurking beneath its polished surfaces. Benjamin began systematically retracing the movements of the night before, observing the slight scuffs on the floor, the way the bronze statue seemed positioned for both visibility and secrecy. Every object had a story, every shadow was a hint. He called Clara Voss back to the gallery. Her nervous eyes flickered as she entered, hands trembling slightly. Benjamin didn't speak immediately. Instead, he watched her, the way she shifted weight from foot to foot, the subtle tension in her shoulders, the hesitation in her gestures. Observing, always observing, he had learned, revealed more than any confession. Clara, he began softly, tell me everything again. Every detail you remember about last night, from the moment you entered the gallery to the moment you saw Mr. Klein. She hesitated, then spoke in fragmented sentences, each revealing tiny inconsistencies. Benjamin noticed it immediately, her recollection of the statue's position contradicted her previous account. A minor detail easily overlooked by most, but significant. Then Marcus Lorne arrived. His demeanor was polished, calm, but Benjamin could sense the strain beneath the surface, the slight tightening of his jaw, the barely perceptible blink rate. He recounted his story, precise, measured, yet lacking small, instinctual tells of genuine fear. Benjamin nodded subtly, cataloguing every nuance. Benjamin observed them, the gallery, the bronze statue, the silent witness, and began to connect the dots. The statue's markings, the paint residue, the faint shoe prints, the cryptic note, all suggested someone intended for him to follow a trail. He moved between Clara and Marcus, watching interactions, gestures, and unspoken cues. The psychological game was in full swing. Each suspect revealed themselves through unconscious actions, Clara's paint-stained hands, Marcus's controlled movements, the fleeting glance toward a back exit. Benjamin stepped closer to the statue, crouched, and examined it again. A hidden compartment, previously unnoticed, revealed itself under careful manipulation. Inside, a small, folded photograph showing both Clara and Marcus near the gallery during the hours Klein was killed, a silent record, like a witness who never spoke. He rose, holding the photograph carefully. The gallery seemed to pulse with anticipation, shadows stretching longer as if reacting to the revelation. Benjamin's mind raced. The killer had planned meticulously, leaving subtle cues, observing reactions, testing his perception. But one thing was clear, someone's ego had required them to be seen, to leave breadcrumbs. He turned toward Clara and Marcus, calm but intense. The crime wasn't just about death. It was about observation, control, and leaving a trail. And whoever did this, has underestimated my attention to detail. Outside, the city remained silent under a veil of fog. Inside, the gallery held its breath. Benjamin's gaze returned to the bronze statue, noting the almost imperceptible scratches that traced the movements of the night. "The silent witness speaks," he whispered, "and I am listening." The game had only begun. The city outside was waking slowly, its early light cutting through fog and reflected in the gallery's glass walls. Benjamin Hard remained inside, crouched near the bronze statue, silent witness, examining the faint scratches and paint residue with unwavering focus. Every mark, every imperfection, told a story, a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. He had already observed Clara Voss and Marcus Lorne. Their stories contained inconsistencies, subtle gestures revealing hesitation or deception. Now it was time to follow the traces, the invisible threads connecting them to Klein's murder. Benjamin began with the office, retracing Klein's last movements. Footprints led to the desk, but the faint outline of a second set, smaller, lighter, suggested someone had been present during the critical moments. He knelt, brushing a fingertip along the floor, feeling the subtle indentation of shoes. The pattern matched no visible tracks in the main entrance, indicating stealth and precision. Then he examined the bronze statue once more. The paint traces hinted at Clara's involvement, but the placement of smudges suggested deliberate staging. Someone wanted the statue noticed, someone guiding him to it. The letters, the notes, and the photograph previously found all indicated orchestration. But who was truly behind it? Benjamin called Clara and Marcus back again, separately this time. He began subtle psychological tests, questions layered with observation, designed to reveal truth through behavior rather than words. Clara's answers, initially hesitant, grew tense. A tiny tremor in her hand as she pointed toward the statue betrayed fear. Marcus, conversely, maintained controlled composure, but his eyes flicked toward hidden exits more than once, betraying awareness of escape routes. Benjamin combined these observations with forensic details, fingerprints, paint residue, shoe prints. Each piece of evidence connected subtly, but he had learned that in cases like this, motives were just as important as physical proof. He pondered the relationships. Clara, a young artist, had personal grievances, stolen artwork, the pressure of recognition, financial dependency on Klein. Marcus, a former business partner, had resentment, opportunity, and access. Both had reasons to act, both had means. Benjamin rose, pacing slowly. Then a thought struck him. What if the real killer wasn't one of them? What if the murder had been orchestrated to point toward them? Someone clever, someone anticipating both Benjamin's investigation and the suspect's behavior. He examined the hidden compartment in the bronze statue again. Inside, he found a tiny microcassette, long overlooked. Its presence was subtle, almost laughable, a silent witness recording the night of the murder. Benjamin played it. A faint voice, almost whispering, detailed movements within the gallery, footsteps, the swing of a blunt object, the timing of entry and exit. The tone was clinical, emotionless, clearly premeditated, designed to observe reactions rather than express guilt. A cold realization settled over him: the killer had been watching everything, counting on him to follow breadcrumbs, manipulate the investigation, and reveal themselves through analysis. Benjamin smiled faintly. That mistake, underestimating his attention, would be their undoing. He pocketed the microcassette carefully. The gallery remained silent, but Benjamin felt the invisible presence of someone else, waiting, calculating, confident. "You wanted me to see," he murmured, "and I have. But now, it's my turn." Outside, fog clung to the streets, hiding watchers, concealing footsteps. But inside, Benjamin Hard had pieced together the pattern. The game of observation and deception was nearing its climax. He knew one thing for certain: the silent witness had spoken. And the next steps would reveal the murderer's identity. The gallery had quieted, the morning haze filtering through its glass walls. Benjamin Hard stood near the bronze statue, examining it one last time before moving to the office. The microcassette he had found played softly in his mind, each whisper of footsteps and movements weaving a thread of truth through the puzzle of the night. He decided it was time to confront the suspects directly. Clara Voss was first. She arrived, pale, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Benjamin observed her from the corner of his eye, noting how her shoulders tensed and her gaze flickered toward the statue. "Clara," he began, calm and deliberate, "you're afraid of something. Perhaps the truth. But fear has a voice, even when your lips are silent." Her eyes widened slightly, and she swallowed. Benjamin stepped closer. "Tell me about your last visit to the gallery before Klein's death. Every detail, no matter how small." She hesitated, then slowly recounted her movements. Benjamin listened, noticing the slight inconsistency in her description of when she had touched the bronze statue. That detail, small to anyone else, was crucial. Next, Marcus Lorne arrived. His composure was near flawless, but Benjamin could see subtle tells: the flicker of his eyes, the tension in his fingers. Benjamin questioned him carefully about his business dealings with Klein, about overdue invoices and arguments. Marcus answered smoothly, yet Benjamin detected hesitation when asked about the gallery's back room. Benjamin paced slowly between them, his gaze sharp. Every word, every gesture, every glance was a piece of the puzzle. Then he turned his attention to the bronze statue once more. Silent witness. The scratches, paint traces, and now the microcassette all pointed toward a single, orchestrated presence. He realized the killer had planned to frame one or both of them, using their proximity and motives as camouflage. But one crucial detail had been overlooked: the timing. The murderer's actions had been precise, measured, but the footprints and paint traces revealed a sequence only an observer like Benjamin could reconstruct. Benjamin's mind raced, connecting threads: Clara's resentment over stolen artwork, Marcus's financial grudge, the microcassette capturing precise movements, and the placement of the statue. The killer wanted Benjamin to follow a trail, but they had left subtle inconsistencies, mistakes only someone with his attention to detail could spot. He looked at Clara and Marcus. "One of you is telling the truth, and one of you has been manipulated. But there is a third factor in play. Someone orchestrating everything behind the scenes." Their eyes met his, confusion and fear flickering briefly. Benjamin smiled faintly, confident. "The truth isn't just in the actions. It's in the patterns, the observations, the details you think no one notices. And I notice everything." He paused, allowing the tension to settle. "Tonight, I will reconstruct the sequence of events. The person who believes they are hidden will be revealed by their own orchestration. And the silent witness will finally speak." The gallery seemed to pulse with anticipation, shadows stretching across the polished floor. Benjamin's gaze returned to the bronze statue. The scratches and paint traces had led him this far. The next step would uncover motive, method, and the identity of the murderer. Outside, fog clung to Manhattan streets, concealing the world's movements. Inside, Benjamin Hart prepared to reveal the truth, layer by layer, shadow by shadow, until the art of deception was exposed in its entirety. "And the one who thinks they've watched me," he whispered to the statue, "will be the first to be observed." The afternoon sun slanted through the gallery's tall windows, illuminating dust motes in the still air. Benjamin Hart moved with deliberate calm, his eyes scanning every corner, every frame, every shadow. The bronze statue, silent witness, seemed to watch with him, a sentinel of secrets. He reviewed the microcassette again, listening to the whispered sequence of movements. The killer's timing was precise, yet Benjamin could detect hesitation in certain steps, a subtle imperfection in an otherwise flawless plan. That hesitation was a thread, a clue to motive. He began with Clara Voss. Alone now, she seemed smaller, her energy subdued. Benjamin's eyes traced her movements as she unconsciously mimicked gestures from the night of the murder. He noticed her left hand tremble slightly, not with fear of him, but of discovery. "Clara," he said quietly, "tell me about your relationship with Mr. Klein." "Everything. Don't leave out what you think might be irrelevant." Her lips quivered. He took credit for my work. Sold my pieces as his own. People praised him, and I was invisible." Her voice broke, revealing years of simmering resentment. Benjamin noted the subtle signs of a simmering, focused rage, jaw tight, shoulders hunched, pupils slightly dilated. Next, he focused on Marcus Lorne. A man of precision, Marcus had controlled every word, every movement. But Benjamin noticed something others might have missed. Marcus's meticulous attention to invoices and contracts wasn't just business, it was about control. Financial control, and the subtle thrill of manipulation. Benjamin pieced together the threads. Clara's motive was personal, the theft of her work, the desire for recognition. Marcus's motive was strategic, revenge and reclaiming power in the gallery. Yet neither of their actions perfectly matched the microcassette's record of the night. Benjamin's attention returned to the bronze statue. He crouched, examining the subtle paint residue again, noticing a faint streak that didn't match Clara's known pigments. Someone else had been present, someone careful, deliberate, who knew how to manipulate both Clara and Marcus, setting them up as convenient suspects. He rose, feeling the tension in the room tighten. The gallery was more than a crime scene, it was a stage. And on this stage, someone had been pulling strings all along. Benjamin moved to the office, sifting through Klein's files once more. Hidden among invoices and contracts was a single envelope, sealed but clearly tampered with. Inside, he found a note, typed, precise. "They think they hide in the shadows. They do not realize someone watches them." The handwriting was clinical, emotionless. The killer wanted to be seen, to orchestrate, to control the narrative. Benjamin understood now, the murderer's ego required recognition, a flaw that would be exploited. He pieced together the timeline, aligning it with motives. Clara had the anger, Marcus had the control, but the microcassette suggested an observer, not a participant. Someone had used them, guiding their actions, timing their movements, ensuring Benjamin would follow a trail. Benjamin smiled faintly. The threads of motive were clear, but the hand that wove them was still hidden. The game was intricate, psychological, and personal. And now, he was closing in. "The puppet master believes themselves invisible," Benjamin murmured, "but all strings are visible to the one who watches closely enough." Outside, Manhattan streets shimmered with fading sunlight. Inside the gallery, the tension coiled tighter. Benjamin Hart, calm and deliberate, was ready to pull the final threads and reveal the true killer hiding in plain sight. Night had fallen over Manhattan, turning the city into a canvas of shadows and scattered lights. Inside the Klein gallery, Benjamin Hart moved silently, his steps measured, his senses acute. Every reflection in the glass, every corner of shadow, seemed to whisper secrets only he could hear. The bronze statue, silent witness, gleamed faintly under the gallery lights. Benjamin crouched beside it, fingertips brushing the microcassette once more. He had reconstructed the timeline, traced the motives, and narrowed down the possibilities. Now, it was time to look for the one who had orchestrated everything. He began by revisiting the hidden compartment beneath the statue. Carefully, he opened it again, and this time, he noticed a small metallic glint embedded in the bottom, a miniature camera lens, almost invisible. Someone had filmed the night of the murder, recording not just the act but the reactions of Clara and Marcus. The killer had watched them, manipulated them, and left a trail for Benjamin to follow. Benjamin's mind raced. Whoever this was, they were patient, meticulous, and obsessed with control. Their ego demanded precision, their plan depended on observation. They wanted to play God, and they wanted to be discovered, but only on their terms. He examined the gallery's back room, where older artworks were stored. The chemical scent of solvent was stronger here. Benjamin crouched, noticing subtle smears on a shelf, fingerprints carefully wiped, but enough residue remained to suggest a presence. He photographed it mentally, cataloging every nuance. Then he noticed something odd, a door slightly ajar at the far end of the storage area. He approached quietly, his hand on his coat, feeling the weight of his firearm, though it remained holstered. Inside was a small, private office, cluttered but hidden from the main gallery floor. On the desk, a laptop hummed softly, displaying surveillance footage of the gallery. Benjamin recognized the timestamp, the night of Klein's murder. And there, in the shadows of the video, was the true killer. A figure moving silently, precise, deliberate, not Clara, not Marcus, but someone entirely unexpected, Lydia Crane, Klein's personal assistant, quiet, unnoticed, a ghost among the staff. Benjamin's pulse remained steady, but his mind raced. Lydia had access, knowledge, and motive. She had been embezzling funds, threatened exposure, and used Clara and Marcus as convenient decoys. Her obsession with control had escalated to murder when Klein had discovered her deception. He watched the footage closely. Every step, every pause, every glance was calculated. Lydia had orchestrated everything, ensuring that suspicion fell on the obvious suspects, leaving herself almost invisible. But the microcassette, the bronze statue, the traces of paint and footprints, all pointed toward her, if one knew how to interpret them. Benjamin rose slowly, his figure a shadow in the room. He knew confrontation would be delicate. Lydia was clever, but she had underestimated him. "You've watched everyone," he whispered to himself, "but you didn't account for me." He moved toward the office entrance, flashlight cutting through the darkness. Lydia, hearing the sound, appeared suddenly, her eyes widening. For a moment, neither spoke. Silence held, heavy and tense, until Benjamin's voice broke it. "Lydia Crane. You've manipulated the gallery, the suspects, even me. But the silent witness speaks. And I've been listening." Her lips parted, but words failed. Benjamin could see the cracks forming in her composure, fear mingled with the last vestiges of calculated control. "It's over," he said softly, "and your story ends tonight." The shadows seemed to shrink as Benjamin stepped closer. The game of observation, manipulation, and murder had reached its turning point. Outside, Manhattan's lights flickered, indifferent, eternal. Inside, the gallery held its breath. The true killer had been unmasked, but the confrontation, the final unraveling of motives and truths, was about to begin. The Klein gallery was silent, except for the faint hum of city lights outside. Benjamin hard-faced Lydia Crane, his expression calm, unyielding, a predator observing its prey. Every detail about her told a story, her posture, her breathing, the subtle trembling of her fingers, and Benjamin read them all. "You underestimated me," he said softly, his voice measured, deliberate. "You thought the suspects, the microcassette, even the silent witness itself, would mislead me. But I noticed everything. Lydia's eyes darted to the bronze statue. Silent witness. She had intended it as a silent instrument, a diversion, a repository of observation. Benjamin had turned it into evidence. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I only wanted control. I only wanted to protect the gallery. Benjamin's gaze didn't waver. Control is not protection. You killed Victor Klein, manipulated Clara and Marcus, and orchestrated the entire scene to satisfy your ego. Every trace you left, every smudge, every note, I've reconstructed it. I know your timeline, your motives, and your methods. Lydia's hands shook. She looked around the gallery, as if seeking an escape, but there was none. Benjamin had anticipated every possible route. You had access, knowledge, and opportunity, he continued. You thought yourself invisible. But the silent witness spoke. And I listened. Her eyes filled with tears, a mixture of fear and defiance. You don't understand. He would have ruined everything. I couldn't let him expose me. Benjamin stepped closer, voice softening but sharp. Killing him didn't save you. It only exposed your desperation. You tried to play God, to manipulate perception, to hide behind observation. But observation cuts both ways. You left a trail, and I followed it. For a moment, she seemed to weigh her options, her ego battling panic. Then, almost imperceptibly, her shoulders slumped. Benjamin noted the subtle surrender, the acknowledgement that she had been caught, not just by law, but by someone who saw beyond the surface. He moved slowly, deliberately, and produced handcuffs. You will answer for your actions, Lydia. Not just for the murder, but for every manipulation, every deception, every life you endangered. Outside, the city remained oblivious, its lights reflecting off rain-soaked streets. Inside, the gallery had been a stage for a deadly game of observation and control. And now, the final act had begun. Lydia's resistance melted, her eyes finally meeting Benjamin's with reluctant acknowledgement. You really saw it all?" she asked, voice trembling. Benjamin's faint smile carried both calm and finality. "I always see. The silent witness speaks, and I listen. Your story ends here." As he led her out of the gallery, he glanced one last time at the bronze statue. Its smooth surface seemed to glimmer in approval, a silent guardian of truth, a testament to careful observation, and a reminder that even the most meticulous plans could unravel under the gaze of a patient, skilled mind. The city's noise returned as they exited, indifferent yet eternal. But inside Benjamin's mind, the gallery remained vivid, every shadow, every trace, every silent witness memorized. The game had ended, the killer exposed, and the truth restored. And once again, he murmured, "Justice is served, not by chance, but by attention, patience, and unwavering observation." The Klein gallery was quiet once more, bathed in the soft glow of early morning. Benjamin Hard sat in the corner of the gallery, his coat draped over a chair, fingers lightly touching the bronze statue, silent witness. The room, now empty of suspects and investigators, held only the lingering echoes of the night's events. Lydia Crane had been taken into custody, her web of manipulation and murder finally exposed. Clara Voss and Marcus Lorne were cleared of wrongdoing, their involvement reduced to that of unwitting pawns in Lydia's carefully orchestrated game. Benjamin had reconstructed the timeline, pieced together motives, and traced every subtle clue to its source. He allowed himself a moment of reflection. The gallery, once a stage for death and deception, now felt like a monument to observation and truth. The bronze statue glimmered faintly, a silent sentinel that had guided him through the maze of lies, fear, and hidden agendas. Benjamin rose and walked slowly among the exhibits, his eyes tracing the lines of canvases, sculptures, and polished floors. Each piece, each shadow, each tiny detail had played a role in revealing the murderer. It was a reminder of why he loved his work, the ability to see what others overlooked, to understand human nature in its quietest, most telling moments. He paused at the office door where Victor Klein had fallen. The faint scuff marks, the microcassette, the notes, and the bronze statue had all led him here. Benjamin allowed himself a faint smile. The silent witness had spoken, and he had listened. Justice had been served. Yet, even in victory, Benjamin knew that his work never truly ended. Manhattan was full of shadows, full of secrets, full of those who believed they could manipulate perception and hide behind silence. Tonight, he had prevailed, but tomorrow would bring new challenges, new puzzles, new cases. He picked up a cup of green tea, inhaling its soothing aroma, and allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The city outside was alive again, indifferent to the events within the gallery, yet Benjamin felt a deep connection to its pulse, a rhythm of observation, understanding, and relentless pursuit of truth. As he stood, he glanced one last time at the bronze statue. It was more than a piece of art now, it was a companion in his work, a reminder that even the smallest, quietest observers could hold the key to unraveling the most intricate crimes. The silent witness has spoken, he murmured softly, and the story has ended, for now. Benjamin left the gallery, the early morning light reflecting on wet streets. Manhattan's skyline stretched endlessly before him, a labyrinth of opportunity, danger, and mystery. And as he walked away, he knew that somewhere in the shadows, another puzzle awaited, another truth hidden behind observation, patience, and subtlety. For Benjamin Hard, the work was never done. And he wouldn't have it any other way.